It reeked of sulphur. They looked up and saw, threaded among the thick, dark clouds, fine streaks of silver lightning. Then the first large drops of rain began to fall, spattering on the red earth with a sound so loud it made talk impossible. In the plantation of Toisillet, on the lower slopes of Mont Gonteaume, Joseph Tacher decided that it would be unwise to wait any longer. He had to get his family to safety. His wife, Rose Claire, was in no condition to undergo hardship of any kind. For several weeks she had been in bed, expecting to deliver her third child, a child Joseph fervently hoped would be a son. The black midwives were in attendance, prepared to deliver the child if the doctor from Fort Royal was unable to arrive at the plantation in time. And both the baby's grandmothers, the aristocratic Françoise Tacher and the iron-willed Irishwoman Catherine Brown, who, on her marriage, had become Catherine des Sanois, had made the trip to Toisillet in order to be in attendance when Joseph's heir was born. Joseph ordered a cart brought from the stable and helped his anxious wife into it, along with his daughters Yeyette and Catherine, aged 3 and not quite 2, who clutched their slave nursemaids in fear, and his mother and mother-in-law, and the 6-year-old boy Alexandre, who had been living with the family since his birth. Into the cart went a few belongings, the woman's jewellery, and the few heirlooms they had thought to snatch hurriedly on their way out. Joseph took one last look around, then ordered the driver to go as quickly as possible to the wind house. Every plantation in Martinique had a wind house, an all but impregnable structure with stone walls 6 feet thick and no windows, built deep into the hillside where no storm, no matter how fierce, could penetrate. Massive wooden doors, made from hardwood cut in the rainforest higher up on the slopes, opened into a dark, cavernous room that could hold several dozen people and supplies of food and water. In this refuge, secure behind the stout wooden doors, they would wait out the storm. In the high watchtower at the edge of the cane fields, the bell began to ring, sounding the alarm. Work ceased, and the field hands rushed at once to their huts, gathered their children and a few provisions, and made their way to the sugar mill. The other buildings on the plantation were dilapidated and neglected, but the stone-walled sugar mill, built several generations earlier in more prosperous times, was still sturdy. It would stand up to the Ualu. More cartloads were sent to the wind house, full of candles and lanterns, baskets of salted fish and cassavas, and loaves made from manioc flour, large red earthenware vessels full of fresh water and molasses beer. The midwives brought their knives and cords and charms made of dried palm leaves, blessed by the healers, to ward off zombies. By early evening, the plantation was in total darkness, and the rain was falling in sheets, swelling the streams and flooding the fields. Hour by hour the wind grew in force and violence, churning the bay into high waves and surging breakers. In the shelter where the Tacher family and their house slaves were waiting out the storm, the thick wooden doors began to bulge outward and tug against the ropes that restrained them. Joseph and the other men took turns pulling on the ropes with all their force, fighting the terrible outward sucking of the wind. So loud was its roaring that they could barely distinguish the sounds of destruction outside, the crashing of the huge trees as they fell to earth, the flying apart of the 2-story plantation house, the mowing down of the cane fields and plantation gardens. The wind had become a great scythe sweeping across the land, cutting down everything in its path, while rain lashed at the devastated earth and washed the debris into the swollen rivers. Joseph, nearly at the end of his strength, listened to the thunderous noise of the wind and despaired. Everything he owned was being carried off, and there was nothing he could do to prevent it. He had no money, he was deeply in debt, and his health had been poor ever since the previous year, when he had nearly died of a malignant fever. He was only 36, but felt much older, worn down by the weight of his failure and by the continued